In this lesson, we will continue on our first day as a junior cybersecurity analyst. This is where practice meets theory. You've undergone training, watched videos, read books, etc. Now you can put into practice what you've learned. So let's get right into it. Welcome back. Before we dive into the content, I want to give you a heads up that there were spoilers ahead. This is a solutions video. The assumption is that you have already completed the ADX and KC7 Getting Started videos and the Section 3 Top Secret Challenge. You can find these videos and instructions in the show notes below. We don't want to rob you of the experience of learning and gaming on your own. The structure of these videos is I do, we do, then you do. I've already done the Getting Started series and assume you have done them too. This video is designed to provide context to the answers and bring life to the data, techniques, tactics, and procedures demonstrated in the exercises. So please be sure you have completed KC7 Section 3 Top Secret module before proceeding. To get started, grab the companion guide from the link in the show notes below. Also, if you like this content, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any new videos. There are approximately 28 questions we will go over today. As you may recall, we work as a junior cybersecurity analyst for the Balloons Over Iowa company. We're part of a team that monitors, analyzes, and responds to security issues. Our boss has handed us a list of questions that need to be answered. By the end of your day on the job, you should be able to use the Azure Data Explorer, use multiple data sets to answer targeted questions, investigate cyber activity in logs, including email, web traffic, and server logs, use multiple techniques to track the activity of APTs, also known as advanced persistent threats, use third-party datasets to discover things about your attackers, make recommendations on what actions a company can take to protect themselves. With the stage set, let's start with the first question from our list. So we're ready for our first question and we have our companion guide on the side. So let's just go over some quick prerequisites. We can actually do the check marks for the ADX and KC7 Getting Started. We verified that we have, or at least notified that it has been a spoiler alert for the Section 3 Top Secret. And we have our query data sitting on the side over here. This comes from the Microsoft Azure Data Explorer. The other thing we want to acknowledge is the learner contract, which is to say, shout out to the folks for creating this platform. You know, the skills that we go over here are real world skills that you can find in blue team, cyber teams at many security operations centers, also known as SOCs. You can follow them at KC7 Cyber. Also, just want to mention that we don't want to rob you of the experience that this will be actually solving some of the challenges on the KC7 Cyber platform. So if you are not familiar with this here, I encourage you to go back to the top and do the prerequisites to get familiar. Okay, so here we are. We're in the top section here. This actually is the top secret. And our first question is on February 19th, 2023 at 5:02, Son Johnson downloaded a suspicious Word document file. What was the name of the file? So we can go into our data here, and I'm going to actually collapse the connection pane so that way we have a little bit more space. And we know that Son Johnson is the person in place. So I'm just going to copy that into buffer. And I'm going to go into our employee table, and I'm just going to do a quick search. I just completed a quick search for Son Johnson, and I'm going to execute that by hitting Shift Enter. And what I want to do is just get a little bit of information on Mr. Johnson. So one is the host name. So I just want to show you a quick trick here that we can do here to isolate this. So our question once again says, what is the suspicious file that was downloaded at the time? So we know we're going to look at the file creation. So in the file creation, I'm going to go ahead and create a new table because I'm going to search that table. And I just don't want everything that was created. I want files that were created specifically by Son Johnson. So in this ITOZ hostname machine here, I'm going to go back to the Employees tab and watch what happens. When I right click on host, I get a number of options here. I can add this selection as a filter. I can actually add it there, or I can add it right here, where I'm going to say add selection as a filter. Now, when I add them in, I just want to make sure that these are the same filters or the same column headings that this table has. I happen to know that. I can verify this by going into file creations, and I see hostname matches up here. So with that said, I'll go ahead and make sure these are highlighted in blue. I click on run, and I see all of the activities that are happening on this machine. I also know that this is Son Johnson's machine. Now, the question that comes up here is during a certain time frame. Now, I can go ahead and take a look at all the different time frames in here, but I can also just quickly just do a search where the timestamp. So I can say where timestamp, and I get a couple of operators here with timestamp. So when I see where timestamp, I have some options here. If I just hit the space bar, I get all these different options. I get between range, in range, I get less than, equal to. So in this case here, I'm going to say less than equal to, and let's go ahead and just put the date in there. So in this case here, our question says that it was February 19th, 2023. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that date range in there, and let's see what that looks like. So I went ahead and put in my timestamp. I say where timestamp is less than or equal to this date time of February 19th. So essentially anything on or before February 19th, we hit run, and we see we get a number of options. I'm going to sort from high to low. And actually, since we're looking for February, I'll go right ahead into February 19th to make things a little bit easier for us. And let's just see what are some of our options here. And let me just resort that. So this is not giving me exactly the results that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and actually give it a little bit more information here. And I'm actually going to put in the time. So it says it was at 5:02. I'm just going to make that 17:02 using a 24-hour clock. So that way we don't have to go between AM and PM. Just a 24-hour clock just removes any ambiguity. I click on run, and now this looks a little bit better. So back to our question here, we say on February 19th at 5:02, we wanted to know if what was the name of the suspicious file that Son Johnson downloaded. And if we look at it here, this is the file, flightcrewinformation.docs. So we're going to copy that, come over here onto our file here. I'm going to start creating an answer file for us, and we're going to edit and paste without formatting. And we're going to go ahead and actually just pick that up and give it a particular color. So I'm just going to give myself a little bit of room here so we can start to see that. And we're going to make this really dark green. Let's give it a better green that we can see here. So we'll make that a dark green, and then later on we can just do copy and paste for that. So the answer to the first one is Son Johnson downloaded a suspicious Word document. What was the name of the file? Okay, so we're looking pretty good here. Let's put our information here and continue to the next section or next question, which is, from which domain did Son Johnson download the file identified in question 1? So Son is still in play here. I'm going to collapse some of these tables. We don't have to see the column headings or the row headings. And we know that outbound browsing is an area where users can use their information and go out from internal organization of balloons over Iowa into external IPs, i.e. the internet. Now we see a couple of things here. We're looking for a particular source IP to see who was browsing. So we'll go back to Sean. I'm going to say Son, and we want to get the information here, and there's this IP address here. So we're going to do copy. And in outbound browsing, we want to see all of the activities for the outbound browsing where source IP is equivalent to 192. So let's go ahead and put that in. Okay, so we see where source IP is 192.168.2.26, which is Son Johnson's. We see a number of activities here. We're just going to put that in a chronological sort here. And question was February 19th, and we see that February 19th at about 5:02, same time that downloaded the malicious file, is the domain that son went to. He went to blimpsgoespop.com. It had a redirect statement that actually took him to espionage.com. So this is the domain that we're looking for. I'm going to double click it here so that way I can just copy what I need on the bottom part here so we can answer the question. I'm going to copy and paste. So basically copy, come back here on this side, and we're going to answer that question. Just to make sure the formatting is proper, I'm going to pick up the format painter and go ahead and set that up as well. So we're looking pretty good here, and we're on to our next question, which is what IP address does the domain identified in 2 resolve to? So it's espionage.com. So we know we have Passive DNS. And Passive DNS is an IP to domain name resolution table, so that way we can practice good operational security. In other words, we don't want to go ahead and navigate to espionage.com from any of our computers within the Security Operations Center. We want to make sure that we can do good work without tipping our hand. We could visit this site and actually inadvertently download malicious software to our computer, or we can give the threat actors a heads up that we know what's going on. So we can use third-party tools like Passive DNS. I'm just going to put that in there here, just do a quick take 5 so we can see what that looks like. And you see this IP to domain relationship. So DNS changes friendly names to IP names so that way we can refer to web services by their friendly names. So now we want to know what IP address resolves or comes from the domain espionage.com. So in this case here, I'm just going to go right ahead and just put in a where domain equals espionage. And this is the IP address that it resolves to, and that also answers our question. So we click copy at this point here, and I can go right ahead and answer that question as well. So I enter, paste. I'll go ahead and pick up the format painter as well and go ahead and select that. And then we see that was an easy question to answer. Our next question is, what time was the resolution seen in third resolved? This is our timestamp right here. It was on February 11th. And this is when it was resolved. So this is important in terms of creating this timestamp that we need. We may have to create a journey map or a timeline of activities. Getting these timestamps are very important. So I'll go ahead and answer that question as well. Okay, our other question is, what other top-level domains such as .com, .org is used by the domains hosted on the IP identified? So we're just now going to just do a quick search on this IP. So again, I'm going to copy that, make sure we have that in buffer. I'm going to rem this out. So we're remming this out. I may need to use it again. And I'm also going to just add this right from the option here. So I right click and I add selection as a filter. This is where the IP address equals the IP address in the previous exercise. Let's give ourselves a little bit more headroom here. I click run. And let's see what options we have. And we see this same IP address resolves to different domain names. And we see the .coms, .air, espionage.com, and surveil.air. So to answer the question here, it's the .air aspect of it. So it says, what other top level domain TLDs such as .com? And the answer is .air. So this is important for us as well, because now we can do some more reconnaissance work on .airs. So first, let me just get this out of the way, do C, fix that up a little bit. And now we're all set. Okay, now it says how many domains resolve to the IP identified in 3. And we're looking at here and we see 4 separate domains here. So we have surveil.covert, infiltrate, espionage, and surveil.air. So our answer here is 4. That's just a simple count. Obviously, we could use the count command, but no need to go ahead and here. We can just eyeball it and count it on ourselves, by ourselves. Okay, one of the domains identified in 6 resolves to an IP that starts with 194. What is this IP? So let's go back to the question here. It says that we have these .airs. And let's see exactly what they mean. So how many domains? We see 4. So we basically have to go ahead and do a little bit of recon for each and one of these here. So I may be going back and forth and toggling. So for this one here, I'm going to do surveil. I'm going to just add selection as a filter. Let's go ahead and rem this out. And let's see what happens here. So we have the 131. That's fine. So we need to come back. I can do this a variety of ways. I can just basically copy and paste most of these options here, and maybe that might be the way to go. So what we can do is, just so that way we're not wasting time here, I'll just copy and paste that and put this into my scratch pad. This is just a safe space here. And then we'll just constantly come back in to find out the IP address that starts with 194. Now, if we wanted to, we can just go ahead and do a complete report. But sometimes I just want to answer the question that's asked. No more, no less. So we'll do infiltrate that error. We'll try that and put that in here. Okay, infiltrate didn't work for us. Espionage.com could be one. So we'll try that. That didn't work for us. And now let's see what surveil AL will do for us. And the reason why that didn't work is because I'm looking for a specific IP. I need to rem this out. And now we have a better chance with surveil.air. So 194. So what we're looking for is the domain surveil air gives us 194.235.79.0. That is the IP address that we're looking for. And we'll go right ahead and answer that question as well. Okay, and we're ready to go on to our next question. So our next question goes as follows. It says the attackers performed reconnaissance against our organization using the IP identified in question 7. As part of this reconnaissance, the attackers searched for a 3-word phrase. What was the phrase? Okay, so let's do a couple of things here. We'll go back to question 7. This is the IP address that they were looking for, so we're going to copy that into buffer. So I have that copied into buffer. I also have a little scratch pad area that I want to get rid of at this point here. And we want to look at inbound browsing. So we know the attackers use an external IP address here. So what I'm going to do is select inbound browsing, set that up here, and then we're just going to search globally for those IP addresses. So I'll do search, open quote, paste in the IP address, and we're searching across all tables on the inbound browsing, and we get a hit immediately. So let me collapse the connection pane, and we take a look here. And we see the IP address did a couple of activities here. And immediately I see some search queries that was happening here. And we see these %20s. So these were search queries against the iowaballoons.com intranet, or the website, if you will. And these little extra spaces, or these characters, are when you have spaces in URLs. URLs cannot have spaces in them. So we know that's our answer. So I'll double click it so we can get that answer down here. Makes it a little bit easier to just do the copy and paste. And I'm just going to copy spy balloons blueprints. I go ahead and click copy and bring it over to this side here. So again, the timing of this here is, you may wonder, well, why is it any of these other type of search queries? Well, in the first question, this happened on February, right before this was going into the search. So this was right about February 5th or so is when we were looking at it. So this looks pretty good. I'm going to go into this section here. We're going to do our edit paste like we normally do. And I'm just going to clean that up with the format painter, so that way this looks nice and clean. Okay, our question is now answered, and we'll go to the next one, which is just before downloading the file identified in question 1, which was the file crew question here, which is file crew information. Son Johnson browsed to a domain. What was the domain? So let's go ahead and find out. So we go ahead and just take a look at, we already have this here. So we're looking at employees. We're searching for Son Johnson, and this is his host name. So we do a quick host here to get the IP address. We see the IP address as well, which is 192.168.2.26. We did some of this work already before. So now we go back to outbound browsing, and we want to see just before. So we know that it was 502 because of the previous question, question number 1. We're going to sort of take a look at 502. What did he actually previously go to? And if we look at the question again, it says just before downloading the file, Son Johnson browsed to a domain. What was the domain? So we know this was at 502, and the domain that he went to was blimpsgoespop.com, and this was the redirection. So let's go ahead and again double click that so we can get that into the little area here. It makes it a lot easier to copy, and I'm just going to copy. We don't need the HTTP to come to C on this side here, which is copy it to buffer, and I'm just going to answer that question right now. Okay, we do our typical formatting and we should be all set. I'm just going to make sure that this portion is here and we're good to go. Okay. Now, the question is, what kind of attack was Son Johnson a victim of? Now, this is a classic attack where, let's get a little bit more headroom here, where users go to visit a URL that they trust, but because that URL is compromised, it has the question mark redirect espionage. It takes you to a different URL, and this is called a watering hole attack. And this is very similar in the Serengeti, where you see many of the animals on the Serengeti rally around a watering hole for refreshment to get hydrated. The problem with the watering hole is that a lot of attackers know that the animals are going there, so it makes for easy pickings. So this is called a watering hole attack. So we can go right ahead into this question here, and then we can just answer that as a watering hole attack. Okay, moving on to the next question here. Let's just scroll this up to give us some more room. It says, how many different domains? Well, first, let's get the formatting done right, so that way this looks good. It says, how many different domains did the attackers use in this kind of attack? The attack identified in question 10. So this is the redirection attack, the blimps.go, and let's take a look at it. So the first thing I want to do is blimps.go looks like it's in play. So I'm going to go into outbound browsing, where rather than using just the source IP, I'm going to search. So we're going to just do here and see how many people were affected by this. So I'm just going to do add selection as filter. We want to see if there were others, so we're going to rem this out. And we'll go ahead and run. We see only one record there. So this looks a little bit too specific, right? The question here is that we're looking for that redirection. Did they use any redirection in other places? So I'm going to back out the URL. I'm going to keep redirect in there. So let's just clean that up. Okay, so we'll clean this up here. So we'll get rid of this. And we're going to say that the URL has to have the connection. It doesn't have to be an exact match. So we get rid of those quotes. And now we see we have 69 records that have different type of redirection going in there. Blimps.go, it looks like the main website where there's the watering hole, but there are other different redirection websites that it's taken to. Now some of these could be duplicates, so we like to use the distinct command. We'll use distinct URL, run that command again, and at this point we see we have 38 records, and these are the distinct 38 records, and that also answers our question. So 38 is our number here. Let's go ahead and just throw the count command. And you see this is pretty repetitive, and this is what we do in the day in the life of a junior cybersecurity analyst. So we have our 38. I'm just going to head and copy that. And then when the question comes in, it says how many different domains? We can go right ahead and put in 38. I can format that properly. And if we had to list out and give the specific questions or the specific URLs, we can go ahead and do that by taking out the count command. So our next question is, how many employees at Balloons Over Iowa were victims of this type of attack, identified in 10, the watering hole attack? So this is the one where the domain equal espionage, and we also have the redirect message in there. So let's go ahead and just build this out ourselves here. So we have this portion here. So let's just go ahead and just run this here. So we know this is commented out where URL has redirect. We go ahead, we select this here. We see that the main website, the watering hole website, is blimpsgoespop.com, but they have this question mark redirect, and it takes you to these different domains where the actual destructive payload is. So if you visit blimpsgoes.pop.com, you'll actually get to one of these sites, and there'll be malware that will be delivered to your computer. These are real scenarios. And the question that we have here is, how many employees at Balloons Over Iowa were actually victims of this attack? So let's go ahead and just build this from scratch. So many times when we're looking at this here, we're just going to do this again. We have the but I'm going to get rid of all of this here, right? We'll just do it from scratch. So we have outbound browsing, and we say where the URL has redirect. So let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to get rid of this comment here, and I'm going to make this a little bit easier for me. I'm just really going to wipe this out here. I'm going to right click and add selection as a filter. And then I'm going to get rid of the specifics of the URL. I basically have redirect in there. I'll get rid of all of this, and instead of making it a direct match, it's going to just have has, and we want to see how much has redirect, and we see 69 records. Okay, that's fine. But we also want to make sure that we have distinct IPs here. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we have distinct IPs, and actually source IP in this case here. So distinct source IP, get rid of that question mark. And what is the problem here? We have distinct source IP. Let's see exactly what's the problem here. Okay, so we have our distinct source IPs, and that's fine. Now here's the other part of this, and again we have to go back to our question to make sure we're asking the right questions and answering the right questions. It goes, how many employees at Balloons Over Iowa were victims of this kind of attack? So it means I need the employees table. So in the employees table, I want to get the source IP address. So I'm going to say employees, and I want the IP address where IP address, double click, and it equals, let's just say one of these. So I'm going to copy this, and let's just see if that works for me. And sure. Now the question is how do I join a table and connect the input or the output of one table into the other? And this is where we're going to use our let statement. So I'll go back here, and I'm just going to call this one a watering hole. So I'm going to say let watering hole equal outbound browsing. This is the whole table here where URL has redirect distinct source IP. I'm going to put in my semicolon, and I bring in the employees, and I say where IP address is in watering hole. So we have to put that in open quotation marks. I see I get a little hinting, little code hinting. I'm going to do the complete. Control K to kill the rest of that line. Close paren, so that way we can complete that command. And here we are. We have let watering hole equal outbound browsing. We have where URL has redirect. We have the distinct source IP. And we have employees with IP address in water hole. Great. Let's get an actual count on this here. And we see 58. And that is the answer to our question. So we're going to copy this over here. Copy. We head over, and how many employees? The answer is 58. So I go ahead and paste, pick up my format painter, go ahead and make that look just right, the way we want it to look. Okay, I'll fix that up again just to make sure that's looking good. Okay, we don't want that, we just want it to be 58. Okay, now our next question. How many different employee roles did the attackers target using this type of attack? The one that was identified in 10, also the watering hole attack, this question here. So this is super easy at this point. So we have employees, we have where IP address is in watering hole. Let's go ahead and get a distinct row. So we know what that looks like. For example, in the employee table, we see employee table has a number of column headings. One of them is row. So I'm just going to go for a distinct row and see how many that we have here. Distinct row. Great, 2. This is fantastic. Now, if I don't want to get the count and I actually want to see what the role looks like, we see it's balloon pilot and the balloon operations analyst. But let's go ahead and answer our question first. So the first question here, it says how many different, we can go ahead and put in 2. Okay, on to our next question. We have received an alert that employee's device, hostname, 3C, Indigo, uniform, laptop may have malware on it involving this hash. And we have a complete hash, which is a unique fingerprint. So this is very easy for us to do here. We're going to take these 2 specific values here and actually search for them. Now the question is what table should we use? And we're going to assume that it's going to be on the file creations tab, because it says that receive an alert that there is a malware on it. So we assume that a file was created. So I'm going to go ahead and get some new scratch space over here. And I keep some of these here because we may have to come back to them here. So in file creations, I'm going to say where hostname equals the hostname that was given to us. So 3C IU, that gives us a pretty big hit. But we also received a particular SHA-256 value. So this was a particular hash. We're going to go ahead and copy that hash. And I'll probably make it easier for me so that way I don't have to type too much. I'm going to right click on the SHA-256 here, add selection as filter, and go inside the quotes and replace it with the buffer that we have here. And this is going to isolate exactly what we're looking for. So when we go back to our question, it says we received an alert. What is the parent process of the suspicious process? And what is the name of the file? The name of the file is helium.exe. So helium.exe is what we're looking for. And we're going to go ahead and answer that question with helium.exe. I don't think I copied that properly. So let's go ahead and copy this. And we are now on the proper side. We have helium. And let's go ahead and do some housekeeping here. So that way our file, our answer key is looking correct. And we also have this one here. I'll pick up the format painter again, double click it so that way it has the sticky feature, and I'll put it back. Now it says, what is the username associated with the device in this question here? So we want to know who is the user who's associated with 3CIU laptop. So we're going to go back into the employees table. I'm going to just get a fresh line here, and we're going to just start to type employees. I can use tab complete, and I'm just going to say we're host name. And I'm just going to add selection as a filter. Get out this pipe symbol here, hit run, and let's see what results we get. Okay, so we have Julie Wells, but we need to get the username. If I'm not mistaken, it says what is the username associated with the device in 14? The username is J.U. Wells. So let's go ahead and copy that. And now we have the answer to our question. Great. We'll do a little housekeeping just to make sure that this is fine. And it says, what is the role of 15 in the organization? So in this case here, we want to know what is the role of J.U. Wells or Julie Wells, and she's a balloon pilot. So let's go ahead and copy this. This is balloons over Iowa. So we have a sense of what's going on here, balloon pilot. We can go ahead and do our format painter to make sure that this is looking right. And this is also looking right. Let's pick that up again. So we have the balloon pilot. Okay. So I'm going to scroll everything up a little bit, and it says, we observed that this file is launching a process on the 3C Indigo Uniform laptop named rundll.exe. What is the IP address? Does this connection from 17 indicate? It's a process of the cyber kill chain. Okay, so first and foremost, let's get the format painter out of the way so we can go ahead and do this here. And we want to see what the processes are running. They're launching a process. So that probably means that I need to use the process events. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the host name here. See if process events is going to give me a host name, and it does. So I'll go ahead and move the body over into this portion here. Okay, so we want process events, and we want where host name equals 3C Indigo Uniform laptop. I go ahead and process that event. I run, and what do we have here? We don't have much because of this space here, so there was a typographical error here. Let me tighten that up, and let's see if we get any results. Great. Well, we also know in the parent process command line, we have a run DLL. So again, I'm going to make this easy for myself just to reduce some of the typing here, and maybe it's not so easy. I should get down into this line here, line 35. Right click, I'm going to add selection as filter and say where process command line has, and it says it was a run DLL. So it's run DLL. I start to get a autocomplete. This is great. I close the quote, Control K to control that line. And technically I should have the run exe in there as well, but let's just see what happens. I'm going to put the .exe in here just so that way we have a complete file. Okay, great. And this is what we're looking for. So we know we've isolated around the host. The host is 3CIU laptop, and the process command line has the run DLL 32. And in this particular case here, this is where we see the command and control. It's going out to a remote host of 172.181.104.77 port 443, which is HTTPS. And this is command and control, a typical aspect in the cyber kill chain. and that also is the answer to our question. So I'm going to double click on it here, so that way on the bottom I can actually pick the IP address. I'll go to copy, and we'll come over and answer the question, which is, what does the connection from us indicate? It's command and control. So first, let's answer that part of the question. Okay, so this is going to be a C2. Sometimes that's how we write command and control, so it's a C2 issue. And we go on to our next question, which is, investigating compromised devices in the organization, you find malicious activity using a tool called rclone, which is a remote cloning tool. What domain is listed in its command line on Julie Wells' device? So we know Julie has this host name. We want to know who was actually running rclone. So we'll go ahead and do rclone. We get an automatic complete here. So we go ahead, take a look at it, and we see that rclone is being run on her machine on February 14th, 2023. And we see infiltrate air is the domain that is going after. So I'm going to make that easy to copy by bringing it into the copy area. I Control C. And the question here says, what domain is listed in its command line on Julie's machine? Well, we see a number of rclone, exe copy, transfer. It's getting document files, spreadsheets, also Excel spreadsheets. It's getting PDFs, zip files, and it's going to infiltrate.air. And the answer is infiltrate.air. So we have that portion of it done. I'm going to do a little housekeeping in terms of formatting, and we're going to make sure that these answers look about right the way we want them to look. So this is infiltrate air. This is also the C2 is the answer to that question as well. So our next question is, what IP address does question 19 resolve to? In other words, infiltrate.air. So we know that we wanted to know what domain was listed in the command line of rclone. We solved for that. Now, just in the passive DNS, I'm just going to search the entire table to see where is infiltrate.air. I click on run, and I get this IP address. So that's real simple. I go ahead and copy that. And this is the IP address that it resolves to, 131.102.77.156. Next question. How many total domains also have resolved to this IP, the one found in the previous question? Okay, so this case here, I'm going to stay in the passive DNS. I'm going to right click, add selected as filter. I see that here. I also have to comment that out. So we're going to do double whack on that. We run, and we see 4 different domains: surveil-covert, infiltrate.air, espionage.com, and surveil.air. So the answer for this one here is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll go ahead and put in the number 4 and properly format that as well for our answer key. Now, next question is, how many other devices in the organization had similar threat activity using rclone on them? Okay, so now this is where we want to go back to the process events. And rather than look at, first let's take a quick results. What did we have in process events? This was for a very specific host name, and where the process command line had the run DNL 32. In this case here, we see all the activities here. What we want to do is look for rclone. So we're going to do rclone. I saw the automatically execute or automatically complete, the ABC. And I'm going to comment that out because we want to see for other organizations as well. We see a handful of hosts that look like rclone was run on them, but we also want to make sure that we have distinct host. So let's go ahead and put the distinct command in the command line. Okay, so we do distinct host name, and we see 14 records, and that is the answer. Go ahead, I see 14 records over here. Just to do this programmatically, I'm going to use the count command, and 14 is what I'm looking for. I copy that, come over, and how many other devices in the organization had similar threat activity? This is great. So we're going to go ahead and put in 14 and properly format that as well using Format Painter. Fantastic. For our next question, a member of our investigation team reported that host Georgia Whiskey Bravo 7 desktop was compromised. What is the timestamp of the earliest suspicious process event you observed on this device? And we want to get the full timestamp. So I'm going to copy this into buffer, which is this unique host name. And we're going to look at the process events. So I can repurpose this line, uncomment it, bring that closer to the command line in there. And instead of 3CIU, we're going to go ahead and put in this particular one. Then we'll rem out all the others and see what our results look like. And again, I'm not looking for distinct at this point, or a count for that matter. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But for now, we'll hit the run command. And I'm going to take a look and see where things start to look suspicious. Immediately, I zero in on this run DLL. XE, I also see this command line where they ran the blimp.exe, which looks like a Trojan horse file. It looks like you would run this command as the parent process, but at the process command line, it goes to a command prompt, it goes to the local group and the administrators, and it's looking at the administrators domain group. So this looks like a very suspicious activity. I'm going to go ahead with this timestamp as the first suspicious timestamp. I can sit here and take a look at other aspects of this here. Most of these look like system processes. They look relatively benign, but once I see the command prompt opening, I start to get a little suspicious, especially if we only look at the command line for process underscore name in our table here. So this looks very suspicious, and let's go ahead and answer the question. So this is the timestamp. We'll go ahead and make sure this is properly formatted. And then we also go to what is the command and control C2 IP address observed on the Golf Whiskey Bravo 7 desktop. And once again, we were here. We see that on February 7th at 6:54, we have this activity here with the local group administrators. But right here, we see the C2, the command and control, where they set up a remote host going out to port 443. And this is the IP address of this user. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Come over into our desktop side of things. And at this point, I just want to keep the IP address. I'll get rid of the port. Make sure this is properly formatted. And then from there, we can go into format and hold that over. And this looks pretty good. Okay, so this looks good. So for our next question, what is the timestamp of the earliest passive DNS resolution seen on the IP found in our previous question? So we already have this copied into buffer. I just want to make sure. And we'll just go right ahead into passive DNS. I'll get rid of all of this here. I think we're kind of done for now. And we're going to do a pipe. And I'll just go ahead and search and see what can we find here. Open quote and go ahead and search for this whole IP. And the question says, what is the timestamp of the earliest passive DNS resolutions found on this question here? So we'll go ahead and sort this to make sure that this is sorted in a chronological order. And we see that it is. And with this in a chronological order, February 3rd, 2023 at 10:38 is when we noticed that this was the earlier timestamp. So we'll come over here. We'll go ahead and answer the question. We'll properly format it using Format Painter as we've done so much before in this class. Then we go on to our next question. Which of the domains hosted on the IP found in 26, same one here, resolved to the most number of unique IPs? If there's a tie, enter any one of them. Okay, so let's see what it is. So let's go ahead and grab this. And I'm going to do the same thing here with the passive DNS, and we want to see which one has a unique DNS or domains to that aspect of it here. So let's take a look at that. So for this one here, we essentially have to do a reverse DNS. So I'm just going to copy all of these the same way we have done this in previous exercises. I'm going to use this as a scratch pad. I also want distinct IP. So we'll go ahead and throw the distinct IP command in there. And then we'll continue to check these out one by one and see what our numbers are. So I'm going to do with pheasants-infiltrate, I'm going to do a search. I could also use a where command, but I want to see there, and I see I have two unique ones here. So I'll just go ahead and say pheasants equals 2. I'll try that again with deference and see what deference has for us. And we'll just wipe that out over here and put in deference. We do a run, and deference gives us 1. So far, pheasants look like it's in the lead. Let's go to covert. And covert is going to just be pushed into here. I could have just pasted it in, but let's just go ahead and do that. And covert is giving us 2. So covert is a tie. So we'll go ahead and give covert 2. And then last but not least, we have deference. And let's go ahead and see what deference looks like. Okay, so any one of these will be fine. Pheasants, infiltrate, deference, covert.com or deference.air. I'm just going to go ahead and pick this one as our option. And let's go ahead and put the answer in. And then we go on to our next question, which is what is the domain using the .air top level domain that resolves to the IP found in 26? So let's take a look at how we can solve that. So we're back to our IP 179. We want to search that in the passive DNS. And again, I'm looking at the entire table here rather than a column. And I just want to take a look here, and I actually just will rem this out as well, just so we can get the full, and we see a number, and deference.air seems to be the answer to this question here. So we're going to right click this, copy that, and it says what is the domain using the top level domain that resolves to the IP address in 26, which is this IP address. It's deference.air. So we'll go ahead and paste that. We'll do our format painter, get that settled out of the way. And then last but not least, it says go ahead, the domain found in 29, which is deference.air, resolves to an IP that starts with 144. What is the host name on which this IP was used for a C2, a command and control? So first and foremost, we want to do a search on deference.air. We want to get all the different IP addresses on it here. So I'm going to leave everything in the passive DNS area, and I'm just going to do a search here. We're add selection as filters, where domain equal deference.air. We do a run. We see this 144 seems to be the one that they're referring to, this IP address. So I'm going to copy that as well. And then in the process events, this is where we saw particular problems. We're actually going to do a search as well. So we're going to get rid of all of this. We could have started a fresh one. I'm going to search that IP address. And we have our hit here. So in process events is actually not what we were looking for. So it looks like the IP was for command and control. We actually want to take a look, and here it is. It says the domain found of which IP. So we're looking for the host name that this actually happened on. So this happened on one of the computers with the host name. We can go to process events and see what happened here as well. So I have passive DNS. This looks good. Process events looks good as well. And let's take a look and find the host name. Okay, and then finally what we can do here is we'll go ahead and just use a where process command. So this was the whole table. It's not giving me exactly what I was looking for. So I'm going to do process events, where process command line has open quote, and we're looking for this IP address. So I'm going to now comment out the search field here. So let's just get this out of the way for us. And now we can run the command, and let's take a look. And now we get a better results here. Now we get the process name, the host name, and this is where the C2 of the command and control was run on 144, 158, 189.12, 112, port 443, and the host name is Romeo Quebec Sierra Oscar Desktop. So we'll go ahead and copy that. And we'll paste this here, and we'll properly format that. And there we have it. We are at the end of the top secret exercise for the KC7 Cyber. I hope you had a good time. I hope you were able to learn some tactics, techniques, and procedures. And if you like this, please like, share, or subscribe. And more importantly, continue with the homework and the journey so that way you can continue being the best cybersecurity analyst you can be. Complete section 4 help desk, and we'll have a solutions video coming out shortly. Until then, all the best.